Discover the heartwarming tale of a millionaire and his life-changing encounter with a runaway Bella. Caleb Wright, the embodiment of success, a millionaire with a gleaming home in suburbs bustling with life. He had it all, the perfect job, the enviable lifestyle, the wealth that made everything seem effortless. But as he sat alone in the park one Friday evening, the sounds of laughter and the sight of families strolling by hammered the emptiness inside him. Each joyful noise felt like a stark reminder of what he lacked: human connection, the genuine warmth that filled the spaces in between. As the sun dipped below the horizon, painting the sky in hues of gold and lavender, Caleb spotted her. A girl, no older than 16, sat hunched on a time-worn bench. Her defiant gaze cut through the vibrant park like a knife, wrestling with the hidden sadness that clouded her bright eyes. He hesitated but felt an urge deep within to approach her. What could it hurt? "Hey," he said, his voice gentler than he intended. "You doing all right?" She looked up, her expression a mix of surprise and suspicion. "Who wants to know?" Her tone was sharp, brimming with a cocktail of defiance and vulnerability that struck a chord deep in Caleb's heart. He sat down beside her, putting distance yet not aggression between them. For reasons he didn't entirely understand, he revealed a bit about himself: an executive at a thriving company, owner of a sprawling home, yet somehow, empty. To his shock, she listened, really listened. "That's a lot of stuff," she said, her voice softening just a bit. "But what do you want?" They talked, really talked, as twilight wrapped around them like a comforting blanket. Her name was Bella, a runaway from a chaotic home where love seemed to have collapsed under the weight of neglect. The more she shared, the more Caleb was reminded of his own struggles growing up in a family where emotions were buried under ambition, vulnerability seen as weakness. Their stories intertwined like the thickening dusk, revealing edges of hope and resilience. Before we continue, I need to let you know about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, hit that bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can drop a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, let me know in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. As the conversation meandered through their lives, an unlikely friendship began to blossom. Bella's determination sparked a light within Caleb, challenging him to reconsider what it meant to succeed. Yet, a nagging thought gripped him: could he truly help her navigate the twisted pathways of her past? The world of privilege he inhabited felt distant from her reality, and as he tried to offer guidance, the gulf between them widened. Just then, a heated exchange erupted nearby between Caleb and a community leader who eyed him with suspicion. "What do you want with her?" the man demanded, his voice dripping with skepticism. Caleb felt a flare of indignation but was caught off guard by the disbelief in the man's eyes. The sentiment that wealthy people could only do harm rang loud and clear. As tensions rose and whispers buzzed around them, Caleb's heart raced with the urgency to defend Bella, to solidify their fragile bond against a tide of misconceptions. He began to realize that helping Bella meant confronting his own entitlement and the shadows of wealth that could blur intentions. Would he have the courage to weather the storm and stand by the one person who saw beyond his riches? Could Bella reclaim her voice, facing the ghosts of her past with the support of someone from an entirely different world? As night cloaked the park, the air thickened with anticipation, and the promise of what lay ahead hung heavy in the air. Caleb's heart thudded in his chest as the man's words lingered in the air like a dark cloud. It felt like a challenge, almost a judgment of his very character. Just as he was about to respond, he glanced at Bella. Her eyes were wide with worry, darting between him and the man before her. "Don't," she whispered. Her voice was low, yet it held a weight that surprised him. With a deep breath, he chose silence. Maybe it was for the best, maybe defending himself would only push her further into doubt. But that didn't make the tightness in his throat vanish, nor did it ease the grip of anger that coiled inside him. "I'm just trying to help her," Caleb finally managed, his tone steady, albeit strained. "Help?" the community leader scoffed. "Is that what they call it these days?" You think you can stroll in here and save her, huh? Like some kind of white knight? Caleb felt heat rise in his cheeks. He was hoping to play hero, not at all. He just wanted to connect, to share something real. But the man's accusation only intensified the chasm between him and Bella. Their worlds were colliding, and it left Caleb feeling raw and exposed. Maybe you should go, Bella said suddenly, her voice lined with resolve that Caleb wasn't sure she actually felt. I don't need saving. Her words fell like stones between them, palpable and cold. Caleb took in her fierce demeanor, feeling an unexpected surge of admiration. She was powerful in her defiance, yet Caleb couldn't shake the fear that this uncertainty might push her away just when they were beginning to bond. It's not about saving you, Bella, he asserted. It's about being there if you want that. The tension hung, palpable as the flickering streetlights illuminating their small patch of park. Bella searched his gaze for something understanding, perhaps. A part of her seemed ready to retreat, but another part, maybe a stronger part, was urging her to stay. The community leader crossed his arms, still skeptical but seemingly willing to let the moment linger. Just remember, not everyone is out for your interest. Neither am I, Caleb replied, a fierceness igniting in his chest. I'm just trying to understand. That seemed to shift the dynamic. Bella's expression softened slightly, and Caleb saw something flicker in her eyes. Was it trust? Or was it simply the weariness of being under constant scrutiny? How do you understand? She asked quietly. You've never been in my shoes. No, he admitted, feeling the weight of her truth. But I want to learn. I want to be here for you, if I can. A long pause followed, marked by swirling emotions. The darkness around them wrapped them up in an aura both heavy and hopeful. Caleb noted the way her lips tightened into a line, the inner battle of uncertainty etching her features, yet before Caleb could fathom her response, the community leader shifted away, muttering something about these rich types. And just like that, the moment they shared felt exposed, on fragile ground. I don't want you to get hurt, Bella said, her voice barely above a whisper. I can't be your project. I don't want your pity. Then let me help you with something else, Caleb proposed, feeling more fervent than before. Friendship. No strings attached. The word friendship hung between them like a promise, a lifeline cast in troubled waters. But before Bella could answer, discordant voices erupted from the crowd. A commotion broke out up the path, drawing Caleb's attention. Curiosity and concern flooded him as he turned to Bella. What is happening? Her expression shifted, eyes narrowing with something like recognition. It's the group A Shelter for Kids Like Me. They're always stirring trouble. It's complicated. Complicated. That seemed to be the theme of their night and perhaps their lives. What if we check it out? Together? He suggested, his heart pounding in anticipation. She hesitated, glancing toward the chaos and then back at him. But what if they don't want you there? Caleb's chest tightened. He didn't want to be dismissed again, especially now that he felt this connection forming. Then at least we'll know. And if they do want me gone, I'll leave it to you. The trust in her eyes mingled with uncertainty, and when Caleb understood, she stood at a crossroad, and he could either break through her defenses or risk losing her completely. Are you ready? He asked, now aware that the risk wasn't just his to bear, it was theirs to step into the unknown together. Bella took a deep breath, resolute yet fragile. I guess we'll find out. In that moment, Caleb felt the stirrings of hope mixed with nervous adrenaline. The night was pregnant with uncertainty, and as they took their first steps toward the chaos, Caleb knew, this was only the beginning. Would they truly confront the storms brewing in their lives, or would they turn back when faced with the reality of their own fears? The path forward seemed dark, but in each other, they carried the first flickers of light. As they stepped deeper into the unfolding chaos, the noise became a pulsing rhythm, a heartbeat of its own, with shouting voices and hurried feet. Caleb's stomach churned, a blend of excitement and anxiousness as they approached the knot of people. What is going on? he asked, scanning the crowd. The tension was thick, sharp like a knife slicing through air filled with uncertainty. Bella's eyes darted among the faces, the familiar and the troubled. It's a gathering. They talk about the struggles and needs of kids like me. Sometimes it gets heated. Caleb took her hand, a gentle squeeze that caught her by surprise. The warmth of her skin against his offered comfort amid the buzzing doubts that clung tightly. We can handle it together. She glanced at their intertwined fingers, a slight surprise flickering in her gaze. Then, her expression hardened as they moved closer. You might not understand. They've been through a lot. What if I told you I'm just as lost sometimes? Caleb replied, emboldened by their proximity. I want to know. I want to try. The group loomed ahead, a cacophony of voices clamoring for attention, and Caleb could feel every ounce of tension spiraling within the crowd. As they drew nearer, a figure broke free from the mass, a girl, likely not much older than Bella, her face flushed with anger. They don't care about us. The girl shouted, her fury palpable. We're just another problem to solve. Caleb felt his heart sink. He swallowed hard, torn between the urge to step in and fear that his presence would only exacerbate things. He squeezed Bella's hand a little tighter, and she nodded, sensing the shift in his resolve. Isn't that right? The girl continued. What do they know about our lives? Swanning in here like they own the place. Caleb's body tightened at the accusation, but Bella stepped forward. They don't own anything, Jess. They're just trying to help. The girl turned, eyes wide, instantly recognizing Bella's voice. What do you know? She shot back. You haven't been here long enough to see what really happens. Caleb watched as Bella's expression shifted, the fortitude replacing the earlier uncertainty. She took a deep breath and let it out slowly, as if gathering every ounce of her courage. I know that the people here care. They just want to listen. The crowd murmured, several heads nodding in agreement, while a few others frowned. It felt like watching a delicate thread weave its way through the chaos, stitching together a brittle patchwork of trust. Yeah, right, Jess sneered, eyeing Caleb with suspicion. And what about him? Is he just here for a photo op? To check off a box in his charity work and go back to his perfect life? Caleb's chest tightened. Her words stung, a piercing arrow aimed straight at his intentions. But before he could react, Bella stepped even closer. No. He's not like that. He wants to understand. It was a simple statement, but it reverberated through the small crowd. For a heartbeat, the noise faded, and Caleb felt the eye of the storm swirl around them. Come on, Jess, Bella continued, her voice rising above the uncertainty. This isn't just about us. It's bigger. Everyone has a story. As if the tension had snapped, a few others began chiming in, sharing their experiences. Before long, the group dynamics shifted, becoming a space of vulnerability rather than chaos. In those moments, Caleb felt something stir within him, something more than he had ever anticipated. Watching Bella transform in front of him, he realized how much she held within, a reservoir of strength and resolve. She was a warrior disguised as a runaway, yet just as he began to feel the hope blooming, someone shouted from the back of the crowd. What are you going to do about it? Talking isn't enough. The words hung in the air, challenging and taunting. A sense of urgency crept in as Caleb's mind raced. What could he do? How could he contribute beyond words? As he stared at the faces before him, he felt a flicker of inspiration ignite within him. This was a crossroads not just for Bella, but for everyone here, including himself. You want to hear our stories? He began, his voice firm, resonating with the heartbeats of those gathered. Then let us make this a place to share, to listen, and to plan. There's more we can do together. The collective silence bore witness to his words. Then, one by one, they nodded, many expressions transforming from skepticism to cautious interest. In that moment, the flickers of light Caleb had recognized before burst into something brighter. But as he looked at Bella, her eyes wide and uncertain yet hopeful, he saw the challenges ahead of them, intertwined with the prospects of newfound connection. "Are you with me?" he asked her softly, a question laced with vulnerability. The night had already taken them on a wild ride, but now it felt like the real adventure was just beginning. Would they find a way to turn their newfound resolve into tangible change? Caleb could feel the crowd's energy shifting, like the changing tides. Their hesitation slowly transformed into curiosity. He glanced at Bella. Her eyes sparkled with a mixture of hope and something deeper, a raw determination he wanted to nurture. It was a fire igniting in the darkness. "Let us find a corner," he suggested, motioning for the crowd to follow. "It's a bit of a jungle here. We need space to breathe and really talk." Some of them shuffled forward, still skeptical but willing to see where this would lead. They moved to a more open part of the park, surrounded by aging trees that towered above like silent guardians. The chaos of the earlier gathering faded, replaced by a more intimate atmosphere. "All right," Caleb started, nervously rubbing his hands together. "How about we sit in a circle? Everyone can share, and we'll make a plan together." He looked around, searching for approval. He had seen teams come together in boardrooms. This felt more vital, more desperate. "I like that idea," Bella exclaimed, her voice steadying the small group. "We're all here for a reason, and if we want things to change, we have to start with each other." As they settled onto the grass, Caleb could see the tension slowly draining from the faces around him. He took a seat beside Bella and caught her eye. They shared a silent moment of solidarity. "Who wants to start?" Caleb asked, his own voice wavering slightly. A boy named Alex raised his hand. He looked younger, perhaps around 15, his clothes worn but clean. "I will. I've been living on the streets for over a year now," Alex began, a hint of defiance in his tone. "I didn't choose this life. It chose me." The group leaned in closer, captivated. "My parents. They just gave up on me." Shivers ran down Caleb's spine, tension flooding back into the air. It was a stark reminder of how real the struggle was for so many. "I know how it feels to have no one," Bella softly chimed in, her voice laced with empathy. "I fought to escape, just like you. It's brutal, but we can make it better." With each shared story, a girl who was forced to leave home due to her family problems, an older boy who described the pain of feeling invisible. The weight of those experiences hung heavy yet tethered them together like threads in a frayed tapestry. Caleb wondered, how could he be part of the solution? It wasn't just about words. They needed action. "Something has to change," he spoke out, punctuating the seriousness of their stories. "I mean it. We could set up a support group, find resources, a way to help each other. It could be a safe space." The group murmured, weighing his suggestion. Some looked skeptical, others intrigued. Safe space. Jess, the earlier skeptic, leaned forward, her frown softening. "What makes you think you can provide that? You don't know what we go through." Caleb felt the heat of her challenge, but instead of recoiling, he took a deep breath. "You're right. But I want to learn, to listen. I'm not here to impose my ideas on you. I'm here to work together, to figure it out with you. We need each other." And then something shifted. The defensiveness in Jess's eyes gave way to a flicker of understanding. "You might actually mean that," she said quietly, almost to herself. As they continued sharing and discussing ways to create change, Caleb felt the weight in his heart ease little by little. Maybe they would find a way to create that safe space together. He glanced at Bella, her face glowing with encouragement, as if she had sparked hope in the others, too, but just as the tone began to uplift with possibilities, a siren blared in the distance, a harsh reminder of reality. Bella's gaze darkened, and Caleb felt a knot tightening in his stomach. What were we going to do when the world interrupts us like this? She whispered, fear creeping into her voice, reminding him that change wasn't just about dreams, it was about facing harsh truths. Together, he said firmly, but doubt loomed in his mind. Was he really ready for what lay ahead? The crowd around him buzzed with ideas, but Caleb felt the weight of something larger stirring in his chest. What would they really do when the world pushed back? The sound of the siren grew louder, slicing through their moment of connection. It felt like a crack forming in the fragile bubble they had created. Caleb could see the tension rebuilding in Jess's face and others as they looked nervously at one another. What if they come here? Someone whispered from the back, dark eyes wide with fear. What if they kick us out again? Caleb's stomach churned. He rose to his feet, uneasy but desperate to keep the momentum going. We can handle it, he asserted, glancing at Bella. She nodded, her unwavering spirit setting an example for others. We can be prepared. But first, we have to stick together. Let us brainstorm ideas on how we can defend ourselves, what we need as a group. I don't need defending, Alex spoke up, surprised at how fierce his voice had sounded. I have nothing to lose. But I don't want to see any of you hurt. A murmur of agreement rustled through the crowd. Slowly, each person's unease shifted from fear to a collective resilience. Bella spoke again, her voice cutting through the noise. That's right. If we're caught, we can tell them we're just having a meeting. We're coming together to make change, and that's good. Important. They can't kick us out for that. Caleb felt a spark of hope ignite in the pit of his stomach. Could it really be that simple? He nodded vigorously. Let us make a list. If we need food, supplies, or somewhere to meet next time, we make it happen. Hands went up, ideas started to flow like a stream unleashed. We need flyers to spread the word. Jess suggested, a bit of adrenaline transforming her skepticism into energy as she leaned forward eagerly. Yeah. And maybe a regular schedule. Let people know when they can come join us. Another voice chimed in. Caleb watched in awe as, one by one, they shared ideas, turning that tentative circle into something so powerful it felt electric. It was their community taking form, a safety net woven together by shared struggles and aspirations. They envisioned a closed Facebook group, a pop-up community event, and places where they could connect and lend each other a hand. All we need is a little support. Bella shouted, her enthusiasm contagious, as nods of approval echoed through the group, yet, even amidst the rising excitement, the siren wailed again, distant but reminding. The world outside still lurked, a predator tempting them to fracture. Caleb glanced at Bella, whose eyes showed a mixture of determination and worry. What about us? What if they find out? She whispered again, doubt creeping into her voice. Caleb knew they were skating on fine ice. Their plans were audacious, but the reality felt terrifying. Then we stand united. No matter what. No one gets left behind. That promise resonated in Caleb's heart. Whether it was words or actions that followed, by banding together, they had taken the first step towards something greater. Their stories would ignite change, lifting shadows from their lives. As laughter and ideas danced among the group, Caleb fumbled for the right moment to shift focus from their fears to their dreams. Okay, he finally said, his voice gaining strength. So, how do we turn these ideas into action? Who wants to lead our next steps? But before anyone could respond, the siren grew louder still, and Caleb whipped his head toward the source. Because that sound was coming closer. A flash of blue and red flickered through the trees, and Caleb's heart skipped a beat. Someone's coming. He announced, fear threading through the hopeful atmosphere. What do we do? A palpable silence fell as they all turned to him, uncertainty and anxiety etched on every face. And in that moment, Caleb understood that their next move would define them. Would they stand strong, or would they scatter before the storm? Together, he insisted, barely realizing that his own voice wavered. No backing down, no running. Let us show them who we are. But were they truly ready for such a commitment? What if the world didn't want them to change? Caleb's heart raced as the distant sounds of the siren grew ominously closer, mixing with the pounding of his pulse in his ears. He scanned the faces around him, seeking strength in their expressions. Jess's brow furrowed, and Alex's jaw was set tight, a newfound resolve sparking in his eyes. Everyone, listen. Caleb raised his hands, cutting through the electric tension. We need to get out of here. We can't give them a reason to think we're a threat. No. We can't just run. Jess shot back, her voice rising above the others. We've worked too hard for this. We're not criminals. Caleb felt a pang in his chest. She was right, but the fear gnawing at him was as real as the ground beneath their feet. I know, but if we're caught, he hesitated, letting the unspoken words hang heavy in the air. It was impossible to ignore the threat, looming like a dark cloud overhead. Let us split up, Bella suggested, her voice calm despite the rising chaos. Some of us can head into the woods. We know the area. The rest can stay here and redirect them if they come. No. Caleb interjected again, his voice firmer this time. Split meant divide. We stick together. The strength of our unity is our shield. We go together, or not at all. Just then, a flash of light pierced through the treetops, illuminating the tension on each face. Shadows danced across their expressions as the reality settled in. They were at a crossroads. One path led toward uncertainty, and the other held their collective hopes. Okay then, Alex stepped forward, an undeniable weariness resting in his gaze. How do we make sure they see us as people and not problems? Caleb inhaled deeply, seeking the words. We show them who we are. We share our stories. If they see us as individuals with dreams and struggles, they won't see us as a threat but as a community that deserves to exist. A murmur of agreement spread through them, souls lifting under the weight of possibility. Caleb could feel the energy unwind like the strings of a taut guitar, vibrating with potential. Jess, you're amazing with words. Can you lead a discussion while I work on contacting everyone? Bella turned to her friend, hope glimmering in her eyes. Of course. I can draft something that highlights our purpose, what we want for this community, Jess said, her confidence visibly growing. Caleb felt pride swell within him, but it was quickly interrupted by a shout from beyond the tree line. Hey! You all okay? Windows rattled in his mind. They were being seen but not by the authorities. A neighbor, maybe? Caleb's eyes darted to faces around him, realizing they now had a choice. We can't run, he repeated softly, his heart sharing the weight of the decision. But we need to make sure we're ready for what's next. Another shout came, closer this time, and Caleb's breath hitched. The moment of truth stood just beyond the clearing, cloaked in the shadows of uncertainty. They couldn't stay hidden for long. Brace yourselves. Let us show them our strength. Bella yelled, as urgency wrapped around them like a blanket. Caleb stood firm, locking eyes with each person around him, feeling the flickering flames of determination. We need to be brave, he said, voice filled with fire. Bravery is standing tall in the face of fear. Are we ready to fight for what's ours? In that instant, he saw the spark ignite in everyone's eyes, one by one. They were not just a group of individuals, they were a unified force ready to defend their dreams. But as the voices of their potential allies echoed nearer, Caleb couldn't shake the dread that panged deep within him. Would their courage be enough? Or would standing tall only risk bringing them down? The rustling in the bushes grew louder, anticipation crackling in the charged air. Caleb felt like they were on the edge of something big, and perhaps something terrifying. Could they truly change minds, including their own? The answer loomed on the horizon, just out of reach. A figure stepped into the clearing, their outline backlit by the fading sun. Caleb's instincts kicked in, ready for anything. But as the person emerged from the shadows, panic gave way to cautious hope. It was Mrs. Henderson, the elderly lady who lived a few houses down, her gentle smile contrasting sharply with the urgency of the moment. "Caleb. What is going on?" she called out, her voice shaky but sincere, as she approached them slowly, taking in their anxious faces. Caleb swallowed hard, caught between an urge to protect his group and the need to bridge the gap between their two worlds. We're having a meeting. There have been some misunderstandings about us. We don't want trouble, Mrs. Henderson." She looked around at the group, their faces marked by fear and resolve. "This community needs to know you," she said, her brow creasing with concern. "What are you doing out here? It's not safe." "That's exactly why we need to speak up," Jess chimed in, stepping forward with newfound strength. "We want to explain who we are, what we're trying to build together." Mrs. Henderson's eyes softened as she listened, the tension slowly dissipating. "You all have been nothing but good neighbors," she replied, her voice gaining firmness. "Let me help. I can bring some folks together. They'll listen to me." Caleb felt a rush of relief. One ally could mean so much in times like these. "Thank you, Mrs. Henderson. If we could just speak directly to the community, show them our intentions." Just as things seemed to be brightening, the distant wail of sirens swelled in volume again, echoing ominously from the direction of the town. Mrs. Henderson's eyes widened in anxiety. "You need to hurry. They're not far away." "Let us do this," Alex urged, clenching his fists in determination. "We show up, loud and proud. We stand together." In a whirlwind of energy, they formed a line, each person stepping to fill the spaces, linked in solidarity. As they marched toward the sound of the sirens, Caleb felt a flicker of a dream, a vision of a community guided not by fear, but by understanding. Each heartbeat echoed the hope swelling in his chest. The sirens grew closer, but they were not just a threat anymore. They were a reminder. A reminder that they had voices worth hearing and stories worth sharing. Caleb surged ahead, his heart pounding with every step. "We're not here to run. We're here to talk," he shouted into the gathering darkness. The words broke free, a powerful affirmation cutting through the tension. Just as Caleb spoke, figures emerged from beyond the tree-line, flashing badges that glinted ominously in the dim light. The group hesitated, tension tightening in the air like a drawn bowstring. "Stay together," Jess shouted, gripping Caleb's arm tightly, as if their unity would shield them from what lay ahead. The officers looked at the crowd, and Caleb could see the surprise in their eyes. Did they expect a band of renegades or a group of terrified kids? "Who do you think you are?" one officer barked, stepping closer, the light of his flashlight sweeping across their faces. Caleb took a deep breath, grounding himself in that moment. "We're just trying to be heard," he said, his voice steady yet full of emotion. "We want to explain who we are and what we stand for. We want to help, not hurt." The pause that followed felt like an eternity, the air thick with unspoken questions. Were they ready to listen? Would they meet resistance, or could there be a chance for understanding? Caleb's heart thundered in his chest as he awaited their response. This was at the crossroads stood before him, waiting for a decision that could change everything. Would they rise above fear, or would they fall back into silence and shadows? Let us find out, he thought, the confrontation hanging there like a storm cloud dimming the horizon of their brave new world. The officer narrowed his eyes, and the air was electric with tension. Caleb could feel the weight of the moment pressing down on him, every heartbeat urging him to stand firm. The group behind him shifted, apprehensive, but their eyes remained locked on the officers. "Listen, we're not here to cause trouble," Caleb pressed on, his voice rising above the stillness. "We just want to talk. We want to bridge the gap between us and the community. We care about this place." A flicker of uncertainty crossed the officer's face. "You think you can just come out of the woods and demand a conversation? You don't know what we've had to deal with," he said, stepping closer, his flashlight beam narrowing in on Caleb. But the officer's words stirred something in Jess. Do you know what we've had to deal with? She spoke up, her voice trembling but resolute. We're just kids who want a chance. We live in those houses just like everyone else. We're scared too. Caleb glanced at Jess, her passion igniting the fire within him. They were all scared, but they were tired of hiding. The officer straightened, perhaps reconsidering Jess's words. Behind him, Caleb could see two other officers exchanging glances, nodding slightly. There was something there, cracks in the armor of authority, openings for dialogue. Okay, then, the first officer said, taking a step back. I'll listen. But this better not be some kind of prank or show. It's not, Caleb assured him, relief flooding over him. We promise. We just want to share our side. Mrs. Henderson was near the front of the throng, her features tense but supportive. You see. They're not the enemy, she said to the officers, her voice steady. We've been neighbors for years. Maybe it's time for us all to sit down and talk like neighbors should. As murmurs rippled through the crowd, a sense of hope began to blossom. Caleb felt it, an ebb and flow of courage and unity. Maybe this could work. Maybe they could steer this moment toward change. The officer took a deep breath, his shoulders relaxing slightly. Fine. Let us hear what you have to say, then, he said, glancing back at his fellow officers. Gather around. He gestured for Caleb and his friends to step forward, a pathway opening up like a fragile bridge across a chasm of misunderstanding. Caleb exchanged looks with Jess and Alex, who nodded, sharing the unspoken agreement to stand strong together. As they stepped closer, Caleb felt the adrenaline pumping in his veins but also an odd calm settling in. They were ready. They had stories, dreams, and the unyielding spirit of youth on their side. They would be heard. They began speaking, sharing their hopes of community projects and their visions of a better neighborhood. Caleb found his voice, clear and unwavering. The officers listened. Some crossed their arms, some leaned in closer, curious eyes flickering between Caleb and Jess. One of the officers, a woman with kind eyes, asked, "What do you really want most?" Caleb paused, heart racing with the weight of her question. He took a breath, recalling the full weight of what they were all fighting for. We want to feel safe in our own neighborhood. We want a chance to make a difference, to rebuild trust. The silence that followed felt transformative, laden with possibility. The community and the officers began sharing glances, as if squinting to see something they hadn't before. Caleb could almost glimpse a future, where people could learn from one another, rather than fearing what they didn't understand. But then the shrill sound of a nearby radio crackled through the air, drawing their attention back to reality. "Command wants us to wrap this up," another officer called out, breaking the momentary peace. Caleb's stomach dropped. There had to be more than this hasty conclusion. Wait. We need to talk about the upcoming town meeting. We need your support. He shouted, desperation bubbling up. Their future hung in the balance, and as the officers turned to huddle among themselves, Caleb's heart raced. The risk of falling back into silence loomed ominously overhead. Would they hear him? Would they stand with them? Caleb's hope and fear intertwined. It was the pivotal moment that would determine everything. As the officers deliberated, he wondered, would this chance slip away like so many others? Could they unite to create the change they so desperately needed? Caleb watched the officers huddled together, their voices low, but their body language told him everything he feared. The tension in the air was thicker than ever. He could feel the weight of his heart pounding in his chest. Each moment stretched into an eternity. Please, he urged, stepping closer. We need to make this right. You don't know what it feels like. His words hung in the silence, a plea from the depths of his soul. Jess echoed him, her voice breaking but fierce. We're not here to complain. We just want to work together to improve things. Don't you want that too? A flicker of understanding glinted in the eyes of the kind-eyed officer. She glanced sideways at her fellow officers, and Caleb held his breath, hoping for some sign that they were open to this talk. Then the officer with the stern expression straightened and turned to the group. Look, I understand you want to be heard. But you need to know how difficult things have been on our end. His voice softened just a bit as a realization seemed to dawn on him. It's not easy to trust when the lines have been drawn so stark. Caleb seized the moment. Exactly. We're trying to erase those lines, not deepen them. We know it's complicated, but we want to help. We want to be part of the solution. The crowd around him was silent now, hanging on every word. It felt like they were all one breath away from something important, a breakthrough that hovered just out of reach. Okay, the kind-eyed officer said, her voice steady. Let us hear your ideas. Let us see what we can do. Relief coursed through Caleb, a rush of hope kindling in his chest. Behind him, whispers of encouragement filled the crowd. Caleb and Jess exchanged hopeful glances. They talked about community cleanup events, mentorship programs, and even discussions to create safety workshops. Each suggestion seemed to spark a flicker of interest among the officers. Maybe we could set up a program where we can meet regularly. One of the younger officers suggested. His eyes brightened, and Caleb could see eagerness mixed with uncertainty. Yes. Caleb shouted, his enthusiasm infectious. Imagine it a chance to be honest and build trust. We could bring in everyone from the neighborhood. Share meals, talk about issues, work together. The officers nodded, murmuring among themselves. They seemed to be shifting, their hardened exteriors softening like ice thawing under a warm sun. In that moment, Caleb saw a glimpse of what could be a connection forming, a bridge being built, but just as the atmosphere lightened, a loud voice interrupted. What is going on here? A man stormed forward from the outskirts of the crowd, his uniform unmistakable, a higher-ranking officer who looked furious. Caleb's heart sank. The anger radiating from the newcomer was palpable, and suddenly all their hard-won progress felt fragile. What are you doing, discussing things out here? You have no authority. He barked, eyeing the group with disdain. Caleb felt a rush of panic. Tensions boiled anew. Would their moment of unity crumble under this sudden threat? Wait. Caleb called out, stepping toward the man. We were just trying to talk. We want to help, to be partners in our community. The new officer's gaze hardened. I don't care what you want. You kids don't understand the reality we face out here. Caleb's stomach twisted. This was at the moment that would determine if they could become allies or fall back into division. He racked his brain for the right words, feeling the eyes of the community on him. One moment could change everything, but would they let fear pull them apart again at this critical point? Please. He cried, desperation leading him on. We're asking for a chance to make things right. Can't you see we're on the same side? The crowd watched, breaths held, as the standoff unfolded. Would this bold plea push them over the edge, or would it lead to disaster? The answer felt like it was teetering on the brink, and Caleb stood ready to fight for change or to fall back into silence. Would this be the moment everything crumbled, or the spark that ignited a new beginning? Caleb stood firm, heart racing as the new officer, arms crossed, glared at him. Tension coiled in the air, heavy and taut. Everyone around him held their breath, the collective hope teetering on the edge of a knife. Why should I believe anything you say? The officer challenged, voice harsh. Because it's the truth, Caleb replied, determination pouring from him. We just want a chance to be real and to show you we're not just problems. We want to be part of the solution. The crowd remained silent, eyes flickering from Caleb to the officer, interest peaking amidst uncertainty. For a heartbeat, the officer seemed to consider, brow furrowing in confusion. But then his gaze hardened. This isn't just about your words. You think dealing with you is as easy as you think? You don't understand the consequences. Caleb felt the weight of pitiless judgment in the officer's words. But he couldn't let fear dictate the next steps. Please give us that chance to understand. He implored, glancing back at Bella. We've all dealt with consequences, too. Isn't it time we faced them together? In that moment, he saw something shift within the officer, a flicker of hesitation. He quickly turned to the group of young people, faces alive with fear but also a burning desire to be heard. Face it, we've all been scared and confused. You're not alone in that. Stepping forward, Bella echoed, we just want to matter. We want this community to thrive with you, not just against you. Then Jess, emboldened, added, we're tired of being invisible. Can't you see? We're asking to work together, to build something better for everyone. A long pause hung thick in the air, punctuated only by the distant wail of sirens. And in that silence, Caleb felt a glimmer of hope ignite. The crowd began murmuring, energy shifting as hearts opened. Finally, the higher-ranking officer huffed, voice still gruff but softer, you kids think you can just waltz in here and change everything overnight? Caleb swallowed hard, his heart pounding. No, but we can start now. Change begins somewhere, and this discussion is that first step. The officer took a moment to respond, caught in the crossroads between skepticism and curiosity. Just then, the kind-eyed officer spoke again, we've seen too many divisions in this community. Maybe it's time we started something new. There it was, a breath of understanding, a breath of acceptance. The higher-ranking officer hesitated, his anger simmering into consideration. All right, let us see what you have. You want to start fixing things? Caleb felt relief wash over him and nodded. Yes. Yes, we do. The urgency in this moment fused with a newfound hope. They all gathered closer, determination hardening into a collective strength, their stories fueling the desire for change. As they began outlining their ideas, a remarkable transformation unfolded. The officers were listening not just to the words, but to the humanity behind them. Conversations shifted from defensive barriers to collaborative efforts. Caleb and Bella, side by side, knew this was only the beginning. They brainstormed ideas for community cleanup days, youth programs, mentorship opportunities, spaces that invited dialogue and connection. With each suggestion, fabric between them began weaving a tapestry rich with potential. A few officers shared their own challenges too, personal stories that sipped from the deep well of their human experience. Slowly, the air thick with understanding replaced earlier anxiety, binding the group together. What had once felt insurmountable transformed into open pathways of dialogue. Caleb's heart swelled with gratitude as he exchanged glances with Bella, Jess, and Alex. They were no longer running from the sirens, but stepping toward a new era of possibility. As conversations flourished, the police presence receded from fierce authority to collaborative partners, exploring avenues to foster community connections. They tackled their fears together, finally acknowledging their common ground. And amid it all, Caleb realized this was what he had sought all along. Connection, understanding, and action, a chance for collaboration and a brighter community future. As the darkness began to lift, a gentle silence fell upon the gathering, now filled with warmth and camaraderie. The mixed voices of the young dreamers and seasoned officers flowed together to create something beautiful. Hope thrived in their shared laughter and purpose. Caleb couldn't help but smile. Together, they would navigate the brewing storms and find a way forward. That was the promise they made to each other, and in the integrity of their commitment, they could face anything the future held. The sirens faded into the background, no longer a harbinger of fear but a reminder of their transformation, proof that they could overcome obstacles as a united front. With their voices mingling in harmony, something remarkable began to weave itself into existence, one shared story at a time. This was more than just the end, they were on the precipice of something bold. Now more than ever, Caleb realized he had found his purpose. And now, it's your turn. Subscribe immediately to the channel to not miss the next exclusive stories. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm. Comment your reactions and feelings about the ending. Share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this transformation. You need to subscribe now, and don't wait not even one more second to share. Only true fans understand the importance of supporting the channel through these actions.